Hey everybody, welcome on our channel. In this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto was the son of chaos and got harem with gods? Part 2. If you are new on the channel, don't forget to subscribe our channel and like the video too. So without wasting any more time, let's start the story. After the group packed their stuff for the trip, Naruto sat in the middle of the Camaro after Grover left when Naruto cast a subtle game jutsu over him, with Anko sitting on his lap sharing headphones as they listened to the music while they all talked leisurely. It was mainly between Percy and his mom, but they figured it was about what had happened over the last couple months. Since their arrival to the elemental nations, Naruto changed not just physically, which Naruto filled out more holding a swimmer's build, while the girls all had an athletic build, but they had a physique of models. But they were also at peace in this new world, as opposed to the elemental nations where they dealt with harsh words and the ever-growing threat of people trying to kill them when their backs were turned. Naruto changed the most as he matured a great deal and was so much more different than he used to be. If anyone from the elemental nations asked what he did with the real Naruto, he'd answer he grew up and leave the matter at a close. Right now the car was pulling up to a wooden cabin on the beach that was rather large to fit all of them. While it was old, it was still in a good condition. The beach was beautiful with its white sand and clear blue ocean waters that sparkled as the sun hit it. The others could understand why Sally and Percy were in love with the place. It looked like they were the only ones there since no other cars were pulled up alongside the other cabins. In fact, it looked like it was rarely used, but the look on both Sally and Percy's face showed just how much this beach meant to them. "Alright, why don't you all unpack the car while I go pay and let the others know we're here," Sally said, looking behind them as they nodded. Pulling out the credit card his mother gave them, Naruto handed it to Sally as he said, "Here you go, Sally. We promised we'd pay our way on our way here." Looking at him gratefully, she headed off. The kids unpacked, taking everything out of the car and put it into the cabin. As they took a look inside, it was a pretty basic setup: a couple of cupboard, a decent sized kitchen, a bathroom and a couple beds large enough to fit two each. There were a few cobwebs here and there, but everyone figured it was because it wasn't used much. "It isn't much, but I've come to love this place since I was little," Percy said, setting the bags down, looking around the cabin. "I understand why, with the beach outside with the ocean. A warm campfire outside with marshmallows, it all sounds like a little slice of heaven if there was one." Tsunade said, looking around the cabin while Percy nodded. "Yeah, but for my mom there was always another reason to her liking this place. This is where mom met my dad," he said, looking out the window to see his mom walking towards the cabin, drawing a surprised look from his friends. "You don't talk about him much, do you?" Shizune said, getting a shrug from him. "I never meet him. Not that I can remember a time where I did meet him, at least if anything, it's the barest trace of a smile, but aside from that, nothing. From what mom told me, he was a very rich and powerful person, but he was very kind. Apparently I have his eyes and hair," he said, combing his hand through his hair. "They spent their time here on the beach. When mom found out she was pregnant with me, he had to leave out on business. He went out to sea, but he never came back," he said, making the group stare at him. "She said he was lost at sea. Not dead. Just lost at sea. She doesn't like to talk about him much. It makes her sad," he said, getting a nod. "Knowing that a loved one is away from you for so long is a painful thought to remember," as they all looked towards Sally, who was still walking towards them, and felt sad for her. She was a wonderful woman who had a lot of bad things happen to her in her life. From what they knew, she was never one to get angry and welcomed Naruto and the others with arms wide open, something he and the others were always thankful for. Looking at her now on the beach, she looked happy, like years had been taken off her, making her younger than she was. When Sally walked in, she had everyone unpack and make their way outside to enjoy the cool air. Since it was summer, the sand was hot while the water was as cold as ice. After a bit of swimming, they went back to the beach and played baseball, taking turns at who batted, pitched and played the field. It was a close tie between the trained ninja, making them great athletes all around. Even Percy did well, surprising the others, since he never showed an interest in a sport back at Yansei. When the day changed to night with the moon high in the sky, causing the ocean to glitter and gleam like it did during the day. But Naruto found it to be more beautiful at night than opposed to the day. He felt energized like he always did at night. The group sat in front of the cozy campfire, roasting marshmallows on the end of sticks, talking, making idle chat. "Mom, what was dad like?" Percy asked, gaining a bit of courage as she put down her stick, trying to avoid getting sand on her marshmallow, as she looked at Percy with a look on her face that told the others Percy asked this question a number of times in the past. He was kind, Percy. He was tall, handsome and powerful. But he was also very gentle. "You have his eyes and hair," she said with a small smile on her face. Pushing for more answers, he asked, "How old was I? When he left, I mean." Watching the flames flicker around, she said, "He was only with me for the summer, Percy. It was here on this beach where we spent our time together." "But he knew me as a baby, right?" he asked, getting a shake of the head from his mother. "No, honey. He knew I was expecting you, but he never saw you. He had to leave when you were born, she said as it became slightly more difficult to talk. Well, Percy felt hurt that his father never met him. As she asked the others about them and their parents giving similar responses about how either their mother or father died or left when they were born. She looked at Naruto, who was silent, eating his marshmallow, silently looking up at the sky. What about you, Naruto? You never talk about your parents. What were they like? She asked, getting everyone's attention, making him look at the fire. Well, she and Percy were curious about his parentage, as it never came up in a conversation. She knew he and the others were orphans, but nothing else, and were careful to ask, knowing it was a sensitive subject for him. Honestly, I never met either of them in person back where we're from. We lived in a relatively large village in a forest, and people had mixed answers for various reasons, due to an event that transpired the night I was born, he said, making Sally and Percy look towards him. What event was it? She asked, with Percy curious when Naruto turned his stick over as he drew a large fox with 9 tails. Where we're from, we believe in a story of the Sage of 6 Paths and an entity known as the 10 Tails. The story says he was gifted with the power of the gods and fought it as he sealed its energy inside him, while sealing the creature's body into what we now know as the moon. Before he passed, to make sure the 10 Tails never showed up again, he used what strength he had in his decaying age and split it up into 9 creatures with a number of tails ranging from 1 to 9. These are what came to be known as the 9-tailed beasts, Naruto said as Sally was enraptured by the story. Some time later, the 9-tailed beasts were split between the countries from where we're from to act as guardians, as humanity began to fear them as monsters, even going so far to attack them, thinking that they were mindless beasts made of demonic energy. In Konoha, the village hidden in the leaves where the 9 tails resided, my mom gave birth to me when it broke free and attacked the village, killing hundreds of people. He started drawing a gasps from Sally. When the 9 tails attacked, the leader of the village defended the village and sealed it away, but not before placing a mark on the firstborn child of October 10th. Me being the only child born that day, I was the bearer of that mark, these scar-like marks to be precise, he said, scratching the back of his head. The leader of the village at the time, the 4th Hokage, died sealing it away, and he was dearly loved by the village, and the people were angry, not just the loss of their leader, but for the loss of their loved ones as well. They took their anger out on the only source available, and sad to say that was me, as I was seen as a bad omen, or to many the fox put in a human form. People do things that makes you question humanity sometimes. He paused, looking up from the fire as Sally and Percy saw his slitted pupils for the first time. My mom died giving birth to me, and my father died during the attack. People who knew my parents also hated me, blaming me for the death of their friends, families and loved ones, so they did anything they could to hurt me. Kicked me out of the orphanage in the winter, denied service at stores and restaurants. I was even forced to live in a rundown apartment in the red light district, he said, making the two raise an eyebrow at him. The red light district is basically the seedy part of town. Drug dealers, gangs, prostitutes and brothels are. Sometimes I would even get attacked, and if they didn't attack, people would yell things at me like my mother was some gutter whore and my father was some pathetic drunk, or that they killed themselves out of shame for birthing a demon. The number of people who didn't try to hurt me I could count on 2 hands, and the bulk are right here, along with a raiment stand owner, his daughter and the 3rd leader of the village, he said, making Sally stare at him with wide eyes. To be honest, I didn't even know who my parents were until recently, because the people in the village felt I should know when they deemed I was mature enough, and with how my life in the village was, it was safe to say they wouldn't have ever let me know, he said, pulling out a photo of his mother and father to show them to Sally and Percy. They look nice. You look like a mix between both of them, Percy said, getting a chuckle from Naruto, while Sally shook her head. How could deny you the right to know your parents? She said, getting a chuckle from Naruto. It was mainly due to who they were. The man who sealed the 9 tails away was my father, and my mother was the heiress of the Uzumaki clan. If I had to guess, it was the village's intent to keep me from knowing, to gain access to everything they left me, but that stopped when we were all brought here one day with a letter from my mom, the same woman I was led to believe was dead, as she got us the entire apartment complex and enrolled us at Yancey with a bank account that held all the money they had, he said as Sally returned the picture. Which he put back in his pocket. The letter said how sorry she was that she had to leave me alone, and that when we get the chance I'd meet her face to face, and how I'd see her soon. That was almost 8 months ago, and I haven't so much as received a letter since the first, he said, scratching the back of his head with a warmer still on his hand, which was slightly frayed due to all the chakra control and jutsu he's been performing. He learned that by using normal techniques of various levels and chakra usage, it frayed at a moderate pace, but when he used senjutsu, it went faster, as it once went past his forearm to his upper arm and was now past his elbow. Seeing him have a contemplative look on his face, he got up from his seat and yawned, saying, I'm going to hit the sack and get some sleep. Watching him walk towards the cabin, Shizune sighed, catching everyone's attention as she said, talking about his parents is a sensitive subject for him. It always has since we were kids. Everyone would verbally attack him with a sore spot being his parents. There were a number of times we had to get Naruto to the hospital for his hands because a few people took their comments too far and had to stop the bleeding. What happened? Percy asked, getting a grim look from the girls as they looked to the cabin. He beat 20 people unconscious until they were in comas. His fists were bloody and showed the bones in his knuckles, Hinata said, making Sally gasp while Percy went wide-eyed. Naruto. The peaceful, fun-loving, everyone's friend and ultimate prankster Naruto. It was hard to believe, yes he would fight, but only in self-defense, but for him to attack someone first was unheard of for them. He's known for his fast healing. In fact, by the time we got the supplies to help him, his hands were completely healed, you couldn't even see the muscle tissue anymore. He has a few taboos you should know when you're around him. He doesn't stand for the abuse of children and women, rape or traitors. You break those who'll break you, Anko said, yawning before getting up. It's getting late, I think it's time we all turned in, Anko said, getting a nod as all the while Sally's mind raced, thinking they were the same as Percy, before she and Percy retired to the cabin to see Anko sleeping in Naruto's bed with her head on his chest, while the others slept together, leaving Sally and Percy to share a bed before joining them in their sleep. Later that night. Hearing a banging on the door, Naruto and the others got up while Naruto walked towards the door, opening it to reveal Grover. I've been searching for you guys all night, what were you thinking? He said, panting, drawing a confused look on the others' faces when they noticed him without his crutches, before their eyes widened to see his lower half was replaced with goat legs. A better question, pal, what's with the goat legs? Anko asked, pointing to the legs where human legs and feet should be. Later, right now I gotta get you all out of here, Grover said when a thunderstorm sounded off, making the wind pick up. Sally, having gotten out of bed along with the others who changed quickly thanks to seals on their person, wore a blue robe covering her pajamas. She looked at Grover before a look of terror formed on her face as she quickly turned on Percy. She said, shouting over the rain and thunder, Percy. What happened at school? What didn't you tell me? Cutting Percy off, Grover said, we don't have time for this. It's still behind me and we have to get out of here. Percy, still too shocked to speak, Naruto and the others filled her in on the Mrs. Dodds event and the 3 elderly women on the side of the road. If it were possible she would have gotten paler than she was now as she said, everyone get in the car. Grover running, or more so trotting towards the car as he opened all the doors, letting everyone inside running from the cabin in their pajamas. They hopped into the car, not bothering trying to fit like on the ride to the beach as they drove off. Driving down the country road as the wind slammed into the Camaro while rain lashed at the windshield. The others were curious how Sally could see, but she continued to drive like she was on autopilot. So Grover, how do you know my mom? Percy asked, finding his voice as he looked to his friend. We don't actually know each other, but more so she knew I was over you, all of you, he said as he put focus on all of them. Seeing the raised eyebrow on all of them, he clarified, I was keeping tabs on all of you, making sure you're all okay. But I wasn't faking being your friend, I am your friend. So what exactly are you? I mean, for as long as we've known you, you always carried those crutches, but now you have a set of goat legs, Percy asked as he pointed to the legs. Well, I'm a goat from the waist down, Grover said, getting a no really look from the others. We've seen weirder, to be honest, so we'll guess you're a satyr then, Anko said, getting a nod from Grover, despite the shocked expression on his face. How do you know? He asked, getting a chuckle from Shizune despite the situation. You're talking to the group who reads everything Greece related, remember? Also Naruto's mom told us to study Greek mythology. She said, getting a sheepish chuckle from him. Can someone explain what's happening? I'm still stuck on the fact that my best friend is a mythological being from Greece, Percy said as everybody suddenly jerked from the sudden turn. Percy, there's too much to explain and not enough time, we have to get all of you to safety, Sally said, still driving. From what? Percy asked. Grover looked behind him out of the rear window to see if whatever was following him still was. Oh, nothing much, just the Lord of the Dead and a couple of his bloodthirstiest minions is all, Grover said, making the group turn to him like he was crazy. Care to repeat that? Hinata said, using her Byakugan to look behind them to see if they were being followed. Well, more so Percy, since he is in the most danger, but we need to get all of you out of here too, Grover said as the others tried to wrap their minds around this. Well, Percy failed as he tried to convince himself this was all some dream. Sally made a hard left before the group found themselves driving past a large strawberry farm that had wooden houses that looked darkened with a large sign that read, "Pick your own strawberries." We're almost there, Percy, and the others heard Sally and Grover mutter to themselves while Sally's grip over the wheel tightened. Where are we going? Percy asked with his mind still racing, getting everyone's attention. The summer camp I told you about, Sally said with her voice tight as Naruto and the others could see her eyes beginning to glisten, struggling not to cry. The place you said you didn't want me to go to? Percy asked, making the others groan knowing this was tearing at her. Sally begging as her grip tightened even more over the wheel until her knuckles bleached white. Please, this is hard enough, just try to understand that you're in danger. Why? Because some old ladies cut yarn in front of me, he said, getting a negative from Sally and the others. Those weren't old ladies, Percy. Those were the fates. Do you know what it means, the fact that they appeared in front of you? They only do that is when you're about to, when someone's about to die, Grover said. Oh well, this is just wonderful, Naruto and Tsunade said together, rubbing the bridge of their noses, while Sally looked at the two as they sat next to her with Tsunade in Naruto's lap. Are you two okay? She asked, getting a positive from the two. Yeah, it's just that when we went to sleep some few hours ago, the last thing we believed to happen was for us to be driving down the road at full throttle with our friend who's actually a satyr that was supposed to be a Greek myth. Although it's not a surprise since with Naruto's luck, insanity follows him like the plague, Tsunade said, getting an indignant snort from Naruto. I know this is difficult, but Sally started when she made a sharp turn when a large figure appeared next to the car with her barely missing it. The fuck was that, Anko exclaimed as nobody corrected her profanity when a blinding flash lit up the area when the car suddenly went boom, causing the car to flip over and land on the ground upside down. Oh wow, Naruto said, rubbing his head as he had a tight grip on Tsunade, making sure she didn't get hurt further, while Naruto felt a bump starting to form. Oh, that can't be good, Naruto said as he heard Sally ask if everyone was okay, while Naruto looked at the roof of the car to see it was charred with blackened edges. Did we just get fucking hit by lightning? Naruto asked with nobody answering, while they thought the same except Grover, who was knocked out with blood leaking from the side of his mouth. There was a lot of chakra in that strike. It was immense and controlled, that wasn't accidental, he thought to himself, sensing the residue. Come on, we have to keep going, Sally said as Tsunade punched the door of the car, allowing her to slide out before pulling the others open while getting the others out. Tacking on Grover, she told everyone he was just unconscious when they heard a loud stomping sound come from down the road as they looked to see a large figure lumbering towards them, looking as if it had something covering its head with their arms up high in the air like sharp points. Moving towards them, Sally yelled out, now. Do you all see that large tree on top of the hill? Head straight for it and don't stop until you get over the hill and you'll see a big farmhouse down in the valley. Run and don't look back. Yell for help and don't stop until you reach the door, Sally asked as they all began moving, pointing towards the large pine tree towering over the others. Mom, you're coming with us. Percy yelled, getting a sad look from her that didn't bode well for the trained ninja. We aren't leaving you to face whatever the hell that thing is, Naruto said as he and the others made their way towards the hill with Grover on Tsunade's back, while Grover groaned about food, making the others roll their eyes, knowing that was all he dreamed about 90% of the time. Where? The group heard as they looked over their shoulders to see Sally's recently acquired Camaro tossed like a ragdoll as he ran after them, with every step was the equivalent of a minor earthquake as it grunted and snorted. As it got closer, they saw what was chasing them was over 7 feet tall, with large meaty hands swinging from side to side. His upper half was furry and fuzzy, while his head was large and bulky, while also being covered in fur and fuzz. There was a large gold ring going through its nose, while on its head were 2 large horns reminiscing that which a bull would have. Looking at it, Naruto and the others still couldn't help but think, still not the most bizarre, crazy or frightening thing we've experienced. Seeing this creature, Sally muttered to herself as she said, we have to go. It's after Percy, but it's possible it's after you all as well, we have to move. But that looks like Percy started when Sally told him not to say its name as they have power. Pasiphaes, unlike the story of Theseus and the bull man, Naruto said the alternative for the creature's name as names hold power. This can't be real, I mean lumbering bull man, it's crazy. Percy said as Naruto cast him a side glance. Percy, if you haven't noticed, forgetting the bull man for a second, Tsunade is carrying our friend who's a satyr with goat legs from the waist down. It's safe to say all this Greek mythology business is real. Now I see why Mom wanted me and the others to brush up on Greek mythology, he said as they ran ahead, seeing the pine tree was still too far away. Naruto and the others were doing fine as they weren't even slightly winded, while Sally and Percy were struggling. Meanwhile, the Minotaur was starting to catch up as it was sniffing the air for their scent. This side is terrible, take this time to hurry to the farm, I'll stall as long as I can, Naruto said, drawing a surprised look from the others. Naruto, don't be crazy, that isn't some kid trying to start a fight, he will kill you. Percy said, getting a chuckle from Naruto. Oh, don't be such a baby, Percy, besides I've got my fair share of secrets, besides we have to get through here now and it's going to be a long way with you two already exhausted. The most I can do right now is slow him down while you all get to the door, Naruto said, not looking back as the two stared at him. Come on, Naruto knows what he's doing. Anko said as she grabbed Sally and Percy's hands, dragging them away when the large beast roared. Be careful, Naruto-kun, Shizune said, kissing his cheek, making Naruto smile lightly before the others did the same. This is me we're talking about here, you know now, Naruto said, closing his eyes as he activated the seal holding his sword as he drew Tensa Zangetsu with an onyx black sheath when he opened his eyes, showing his Dojutsu. Alright, I don't know who the hell sent you. Nor do I know who the hell tossed that fucking lightning, but I can make a wildly accurate assumption. But know this, if there is one person you don't fuck with, and I intend on making sure he learns that as well," Naruto said as his chakra started to press down on everything around him, making the large creature take a hesitant step back before growling as. Naruto's eyes glowed with two large figures forming behind him with his eyes. "It's Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze," Naruto said, drawing his sword while reaching into his pocket to pull out a seal and put it on the fabric over his arm. "This should allow me at the most 15 minutes of free chakra use, but the backlash will be immense," Naruto thought as his sword was covered in white lightning before it extended, growing to the length of an adachi, holding it in a reverse grip. Forming a single hand sign, he said, "Futon. Katsu sa Retimus Udo Dangan, boil release. Pressurized mist bullets." Inhaling as the large creature charged forward, he exhaled as several bullets made of an acidic mist spewed from his mouth, hitting the creature, making it roar in pain as the skin of the creature blistered and started to melt while still swinging its fists. When Naruto ducked under the first, he received the backswing, launching him from where he was standing and through two trees. Riding himself, he let his feet press into another tree, using his chakra to stick to it as the seal on his arm glowed, making Naruto tsk, knowing he was using a lot of chakra as it was with that jutsu. "Better end this quick, this seal won't last for too much longer," Naruto thought to himself as he got off the tree before channeling more white lightning to his sword, making it coat itself with white lightning as it extended to the length of an adachi again before getting into a stance. Getting into a stance, Naruto closed his eyes and said, "Height Mitsurugi Ryu. Uzumaki Hijutsu. Kage Rik no Kimjiki, Flying Heaven Govern Sword Style. Uzumaki Secret Art. Shadowless Dragon Attack." Charging forward, Naruto vanished in a flash when four images of Naruto appeared around the beast, all in a striking position with their swords giving off a chirping sound, while the original Naruto stood behind the monster, sliding the sword in its sheath. The moment it was fully sheathed, the four clones vanished from existence, while the Minotaur burst into a shower of gold dust when the seal tag on his clothed arm burned away, when the fabric burned more off as it was now at half the length of his forearm, while the string around it was still intact. Collapsing to his knees, he cut off chakra to his eyes, placed his hands to his ribs, wincing before spitting out a glob of blood as he said, huffing, "This seal is becoming a pain in my ass, but my body isn't ready to use my full power, not yet, at least everyone's safe." As if to spite him, he heard another roar similar to the creature he fought near where Sally and the others were running, making him curse Naruto. "Sally, she's in trouble, there are more of those things, and Percy's unconscious." Wincing at the alarmed yell Hinata gave off, he cursed as he got to his feet, focusing chakra to his feet, thinking, "I'm on my way." Focusing on the spiritual side of his chakra, he vanished in a burst of sound. He thought to himself, "Let's just hope I can make it on time in this condition." But the others. Grabbing Percy, Anko got him out of the way as Hinata's fists were covered in flaming blue chakra as the veins on the sides of her eyes bulged outward, striking at one of the many Minotaur that appeared all of a sudden, while Shizune and Tsunade pulled out their weapons, killing more of them. "Damn it. With all these damn monsters around, we can't reach Sally," Anko said, slicing through two Minotaur. "Get out of the way." They heard as the girls jumped back when a volley of arrows as they rained down on the horde as it rained gold dust when Naruto jumped down, landing on his knees panting. "Foxy," Anko said, running towards him as she helped him stand while he winced. "You alright, Naruto?" Shizune said, getting a weak nod from Naruto as they noticed the fabric on his arm was substantially shorter than it was last time. "I had to use that seal, and that last one got a good hit in breaking a couple of ribs. They're healing, but it's at a rather slow pace compared to my old healing abilities," Naruto said as he stood at full height. "But how are there so many of them? Only one was chasing us, and then after you kept its focus 20 of these things just showed up in a flash of light," Hinata said as Shizune checked him over with her hands glowing green. "Ah." Everyone heard as they turned to see Sally in a Minotaur's grip as it squeezes tighter. "Sally!" Naruto and the others exclaimed as the Minotaur's grip tightened down further until she vanished in a burst of gold light. Growling, Naruto focused chakra into his hand as it formed a ball of black chakra with a white light in the center as it gained a white four-bladed shuriken formed on the sphere, while Naruto discharged an excess of black chakra as it flowed off him like a waterfall, with the cloth burning slowly. As the shuriken and the spiraling sphere got larger, several dark gold chains burst from the ground wrapping around the monsters, while a screeching sound filled the air as Naruto tossed it, making the attack explode in a large spinning dome, destroying them completely. "Naruto, are you okay?" Shizune asked, seeing him grip his knees as he struggled to breath while holding him up. I'm fine, although I doubt Percy's going to be thrilled to learn his mom is dead, but I don't think this was some random attack," Naruto said as they slowly made their way to the gate. "We would have let Sally in, but there was some kind of barrier that kept her from entering," Anko said, looking down. "What do you think was behind this?" Hinata asked, getting a shake of the head. "If monsters like those exist, then the gods exist as well." That bolt of lightning that struck the car wasn't some freak accident, it was a controlled blast, and there's only one god of lightning in Greek mythology. If he is responsible for this, I'm making him swallow his teeth with my foot up his ass, Naruto growled as his vision started to fade. Come on, let's get inside and get help. Percy doesn't look too hot, and the same can be said for Grover, Tsunade said as she put herself under Naruto's other arm, while Shizune did the same on his other side as they helped him walk while Hinata carried Percy while Anko had Grover. Taking them further inside the gate as Naruto started to lose consciousness, he heard a series of footsteps and clopping coming towards them. Looking up, he saw made out 4 figures with 3 having slender bodies as they were feminine. One had blonde hair, the other had raven black hair and blue eyes, while the last was lightly taller than the other 2, with stringy brown hair and brown eyes. The one with blonde hair moved towards Percy and Grover, checking them over as Naruto saw the other 2 move towards him. Checking him over, he had to admit the 3 were pretty, admittedly, when he heard the raven-haired girl say before he blacked out, joining Percy and Grover into blissful unconsciousness, Chiron, this one's got a few broken ribs. Ugh, my ribs, despite my healing being slower, I'm fully healed doesn't mean my body doesn't hurt, and what's with the sun always hitting me in the eyes? Naruto thought, opening his eyes trying to get the light out before looking to his arm to see the sleeve was slightly shorter than when he fell unconscious. Looking up to his ceiling, he didn't recognize he went over what happened before he passed out. Things involving Greek mythology being real, Grover being a satyr, being attacked by the Minotaur, Percy's mom dying by one of the thousands of Minotaur that showed up with him, and his friends being targeted by one of the gods' things have been shittier in his general opinion, if he had to be honest. He had to blush at the memory of the 3 girls though. Granted, he was on the edge of consciousness at the time, but they were still beautiful in his opinion. The girls told him it was fine for him to form a harem, a term he despised greatly for it reminded him of his 2 traitorous senseis, as he preferred the term extended family. It sounded cleaner to him, especially since he wouldn't treat any woman as a simple but as women who he loved with his heart and soul and do anything to make them happy. Damn it, what was stolen? He heard next to him, making him shift his head slightly to see Percy lying in a similar bed next to him with that blonde-haired girl, feeding him some liquid-like substance before pulling the spoon from his mouth. Well, not that talking out loud is a bad thing, but asking someone who's unconscious isn't going to be much help, he said, making the girl jump as she turned her focus to him with wide eyes, allowing him to get a good look at her. She looked like she was his and the girl's age roughly and was rather beautiful. She had tanned skin with long blonde hair that curled at the back with gray eyes, wearing a tight orange shirt that read Camp Half-Blood on it, with a pair of blue cargo shorts that stopped at the knee with blue sneakers. Clutching her hand over her heart, she said, "Don't scare me like that," she said, getting a chuckle from Naruto while she was startled at hearing his voice while watching him sit up, seeing his chest was bandaged. Naruto feeling stiff as he sat up despite his ribs healing, they no longer hurt while he stretched, popping a few joints before looking down to see his chest was covered with bandages before he removed them, drawing a blush from the girl despite the few scars he held. Incapable of looking away for a few moments, she said, "How are you up? You shouldn't be up for at least another day, let alone fully healed. I mean, you had 2 ribs poking your lungs. I've been known to be a fast healer despite it getting slower than it was originally by a fraction of what it was," he said, thinking the last part to himself before looking at the bandages in his hands before looking to Percy. "So is my water-loving friend here going to be alright? He got hurt pretty badly while I was dealing with the first bastard of Pasiphae. That note, how many did she have? We were fighting for our bloody lives out there," Naruto said, making the girl's eyes widen at what he said. "He's going to be fine, he just needs a bit of rest and he should be up by tomorrow, and as for your question, I wouldn't know about how Pasiphae had so many children, my guess is that their breed, but for a demigod to know so much Greek mythology already is something amazing," she said, making Naruto smile. "Before my mom sent me and my friends to the town we meet Percy at, she insisted we learn all we can about Greek and its mythology. I'm Naruto, by the way. Naruto Uzumaki no Mikaze, it's nice to meet you," he said, extending his hand towards her. "I'm Annabeth Chase, it's nice to meet you too," she said, shaking it with a soft smile. "Can you tell me where we are exactly? Last thing I remember before passing out was Tsunade and Shizune helping me in before everything went black," he said as she nodded, getting out of her seat. "This is Camp Half-Blood, come on, I'll take you to Chiron, Mr. D, they'll do better at explaining everything than I will," she said, getting a nod from Naruto before putting his feet to the wooden floor as he moved the blankets off to see he was still wearing the jeans he did before he passed out with his shoes on the floor by him. Slipping them on, he stood up, completely making her look up slightly as he stood slightly taller than her before he lifted his hands above his head, stretching again with his eyes closed, allowing Annabeth a chance to see his chest again with his lean physique and six-pack with strong arms. When he let his arms down, she quickly looked away to see quickly lose her blush as she said when she regained her calm, "Right now you're in the medic wing right now, the 2 of you were brought in last night, you guys caused quite the ruckus last night." Sorry about that, he said, looking around the room, seeing Greek lettering above the wall and door when she said. When you fought that last Minotaur, it cut you across the chest, so your shirt was kind of destroyed. Sorry, she said, getting a shake of the head. It's no problem, he responded, yawning into his hand. So you said your mom told you to study up on Greek mythology? She asked, getting a nod from him. That's right, she left instructions to attend school in Greek mythology, he said, getting a look from her. She sounds smart. What's she like? She asked, getting a shake of the head from Naruto. I never meet her in person. To be honest, it wasn't until recently I found out that she wasn't dead, since everyone always told me she died with my dad when I was born, he said, getting a gasp from her. I'm sorry to hear that, she said, getting a negative from Naruto as she looked over his features. He has red and blonde hair, tan skin, but he said he never meet his mom, but the features are all wrong. Whose child is he, and those girls, who do they belong to? Although his whisker marks are rather cute, she thought to herself. So you said something about showing me to this Chiron and Mr. D? He said, getting a nod as the two walked out the door, leaving Naruto awe-inspired by the landscape, which was dotted with buildings that held a resemblance of ancient Greek architecture. There was an open-air pavilion, a large amphitheater, a circular arena that had a lot of training dummies with a few kids hacking away at them with swords. There were even white marble columns that shined in the sun. In a sandpit nearby were high school kids and satyrs playing volleyball. Canoes gliding across a small lake. Kids in bright orange t-shirts like Annabeth were chasing each other around a cluster of cabins in the woods. Some kids were shooting arrows at the targets in the archery range, while others rode horses down a trail, while others flew on horses with wings. Something did catch him off guard slightly. Wow, this place is amazing. More amazing than the Leaf Village, he said, drawing a confused look from Annabeth, which he shook his head. I'll tell you later, he said, getting a nod as she led him to a large building which was substantially larger than the rest, with an open porch, as there were 6 people on it playing some kind of game. As he got closer, he recognized the man sitting in a wheelchair, making him say in surprise, Mr. Brunner. Naruto, it's good to see you're up. We weren't expecting you to be up until tomorrow. You're quite the fast healer, Brunner said, wheeling towards him as Hinata and the others came to him as well. Oxy gets that quite a bit, Mr. Brunner, Hinata said as Naruto shook Brunner's hand. You must have questions, take a seat. Also here, my name is Chiron. Mr. Brunner is just an alias, he said, getting a nod from Naruto. You're the trainer of heroes from Greek mythology. Our friend is a satyr. Pasiphae has possibly thousands of children. A certain thunder god tried to kill us, whom I'm going to make swallow his teeth for sending them after us, and we're in a camp that radiates natural energy. Yet none of this surprises me, Naruto said when the sky rumbled, making him give the sky a middle finger. Well, Mr. D and Chiron. Backed away slightly. Grover, could you come here please, Chiron shouted, looking to his right, making the group of teens look to see Grover sprinting towards them with a shoebox in hand, looking like a track star with a small trail of dust behind him. Putting the box down, he hugged Naruto and the others, saying, Naruto guys, it's great to see you. Thanks Grover, it's great to see you're alright too. After that lightning struck Sally's car you gave us quite a scare, Naruto said, patting him on the back. Gaining everyone's attention, Chiron said, Naruto, Hinata, Tsunade, Shizune, Anko, I would like to introduce you to the camp director, Mr. D. Making the mentioned kids look over, they saw sitting at the table was with a Coke in his hand. He wore a leopard print shirt with messy black hair, well, a little on the chubby side, rocking the bearded look in Naruto's opinion. He had the look of someone who'd coach a pee-wee soccer team. Right, well, welcome to camp I suppose, he said with little care in his voice. Thanks for bringing him over, Annabeth, Chiron said, giving Annabeth a nod as she waved Naruto and the others goodbye as she left the porch before running off. Watching her run off, he turned his head towards Chiron and Mr. D with the others as Naruto said, so we're in a camp and God knows where. As I previously stated, after fighting a horde of Pasiphae's children and our friends, Mom is killed by one of them after a certain god of gods struck our car, leading to her death as we had to run from them. Grover and Chiron nodded while Mr. D burped, give it to us straight and tell us what we need to know. Well, you all aren't normal people like you've come to believe by mortals. You all are known for what the proper term is, a half-blood, or if you remember from my class, a demigod, he said, getting a nod from Naruto and the others. The Greek gods from the old stories and from what people today to believe them as myths are very real and exist to this day. Over the years they've moved from country to country, continent to continent until they wound up in America. From time to time they come down from Olympus to do as mortals hook up with mortals, Chiron said, getting a chuckle from Mr. D. This camp is a place where demigods like you come to train, meet other demigods and form bonds. From time to time even a quest will be issued out to a group, although one has not been issued out in some time. For many, Camp Half-Blood is a place that many have come to call home, due to not being able to live outside camp because of their scent, which attracts monsters like the ones you've encountered last night, or they just don't have anyone or anywhere to go back to, he said, getting a nod from the others, understanding that. Okay, but that doesn't explain why there are only 12 cabins here, Naruto said, making the two stare at him. What do you mean? Mr. T said, getting a raised eyebrow from Naruto. Lord Dionysus, I won't act like you're ignorant to the fact that there are no more than a mere 12 gods and goddess up on Olympus. There are possibly hundreds of gods and goddess up there. If the outside world is so dangerous, why don't those gods and goddesses have cabins to provide their children safety? Naruto asked, getting a sigh. For the fact you got my name right, boy, I'll give you my respect. As for your question, my father and some of the other gods on the council feels they're unimportant or that they're just servants. I along with some others brought it up, but father and his paranoia always wins in the end. Tell me, boy, do you know of your parents? Dionysus asked, getting a so-so motion from the others. I know my godly parent is my mom for Tsunade, and the others they don't know we were brought here from our world, Naruto said, getting a nod from the others, while Chiron, Dionysus and Grover stared at them. Our world, you make it sound like you all are from some different world, or that there is a different world, Chiron said, getting a nod from the group. That's because there is. Lord Dionysus, does the term elemental nations come to mind? Naruto asked, getting a slow nod from him. Yes, a world where all humans hold power similar to that of the gods, albeit on a slightly smaller scale or remotely close to a minor god, and on rare cases one of the 12 Olympians. Humans there, even civilians, were stronger than professional weightlifters in this world, and the shinobi, as you call them in your world, could be twice if not more powerful than that. The abilities you all hold there are just as fascinating, he said, getting a nod from the group as Hinata and the others made clones confirming it. Turning their attention to Naruto, expecting him to do something, Naruto showed them his seal as he said, sorry to say, but I'm kinda on a limiter, Dionysus, since I got to this world after a few problems in our world, which also led to us being brought here. What problems and why bring you here with a limiter? Grover asked, getting a sigh. There was a war in our world where a madman wanted to control the power of the nine-tailed beasts to recreate a powerful entity to bring the world in a mass illusion of false peace. We, along with the other 4 villages, fought him and his large army with a lot of conflict, loss and pain involved, with it ending by me pulling the nine-tailed beasts out and sealed them inside myself. After the war, people I trusted and thought were my friends betrayed me because I killed a traitor to our village when he wanted to continue killing people and bring about a revolution with him as the leader of that new world, Naruto said with a sigh, scratching his head while he continued to explain from there. So let me get this straight, kid, you put your life on the line for them, only for them to betray you and put you on constant suicide missions under the hope of being killed during them. Yup, from what the girls told me, my mom along with 2 others brought us here and reduced our age. I'm actually almost 19, Naruto said, getting wide eyes from the 3. Anko, Shizune and I were in our 20s before we were reduced, and Hinata was a year younger than him, Tsunade said, as the 4 performed a henge to take their real age before changing back. And here I was told that being told you're a demigod is the most surprising thing. You still haven't explained what that has to do with a cloth being put on your arm, Mr. T said, pointing at Naruto's hand. After I sealed the tailed beasts back inside me, the seal I used didn't hold them like the original did with Kurama, but instead absorbed them completely. Apparently this seal is to take that energy and siphon it into me until my body is completely ready or I die, making me on the same terms as my mom, he said, getting an even more surprised look from the 3. Either way, I just stand on the border of being immortal, and until one of the 2 conditions are fulfilled, I can't really use too much of my chakra, otherwise the seal would speed up. I mean, I can still use them, but it would force my body to adapt at a faster rate. I've developed seals that will let me use more energy at once, but the repercussions would be bad, as the seal would burn quicker and it would exhaust me, which is also why I was unconscious when you found us, he said, pulling out another seal from his pocket, showing them as Dionysus took it into his hand. I studied Fuinjutsu for a time while I was in that world. This is pretty complex. I never seen something like this before in all my time there, he said, handing it back to Naruto, who took it back. And then things are getting interesting. I'll have to keep a close eye on you to make sure you stay okay. Don't want one of our campers going up like an atomic bomb out of the blue, Dionysus said, getting a nod from the others. That's fine, Lord Dionysus, I appreciate it, Naruto said with a bow while Dionysus waved it off. No problem, kiddo, and this is for you. After we got you checked out and Grover recovered, we sent him to get that. Apparently it fell off the Minotaur you fought and gave you that nasty cut, and here, he said, handing Naruto a shoebox as Naruto opened it to see a cracked horn before Dionysus snapped his fingers when a Camp Half-Blood shirt popped up in his hand. Don't want a bunch of hormonal girls chasing after you, kid, he said, getting a chuckle from Naruto, remembering when he defeated Pain everyone viewed him as a hero, while girls started forming fan clubs for him as Naruto slid the shirt on, which fit him perfectly. Seeing it was tight on him, he thought this isn't really helping much, but at least the seals I have on hand fitted with that scroll mom left me and my other seals for clothes and such. When I get the free time I'll change my clothes. How about I give you guys a tour of camp, show you around, you know? Grover said, getting a nod from his friends. Things are really going to get interesting, Dionysus said, getting a nod from Chiron, who watched Naruto and the others walk away. The energy they were radiating were immense, but Naruto's is the most powerful, even sealed. He stands higher than Lord Zeus and the other gods combined. Without that seal I fear to imagine how powerful he truly is, Chiron said, getting it from Dionysus. I agree, but knowing father, he's not going to take too well to knowing a demi-being is questioning him, let alone there being a being that's more powerful than him, he said with a sigh as the centaur joined him. But I feel Naruto and his friends will be fine against Lord Zeus. He's more than capable of handling him. Something tells me he's more than capable of doing so, Chiron said before he heard Dionysus cough into his hand. Are we continuing our game? I believe I was winning, the wine god said with a smug expression which Chiron snorted at. Sure you were, Dionysus, and I'm the richest centaur to ever live, he said in amusement, much to the god's ire, as she showed his winning hand as his eye twitched in irritation. Slamming his hand to the table he growled every fucking time. Watching the god's hissy fit, Chiron chuckled watching. But the shinobi. So Grover, what do you want to show us? Naruto asked as he walked with his hands behind his head. Well, there's quite a bit to show you guys here at camp. Not only does it train warriors, it also provides the means of giving kids the chance to feel the full experience of a summer camp, although many campers attend year-round learning because they found it safer here than outside camp, Grover said, getting a nod from the others. What you should know first is that the place we just left is known as the Big House. It's basically the base of operations, or the HQ if you want to call it that, and it's where you can typically find Chiron or Mr. D, Grover said as he pointed back at the large red building. As he showed them around, the teen saw many kids around their age and a few that were around as old as they were in their previous ages. There were even younger kids running around with swords, bows and other assortment of weapons in their hands. Others carried what appeared to be either maps or books as they carried around tools, and some held some resemblance to Annabeth with their gray eyes. Many of the campers glanced at Naruto when they walked by, mainly to see what the new kids were like. They heard how they defeated an army of Minotaurs. While many were impressed, others were if only a little jealous. They haven't been given the same opportunity Naruto and the others were given. Grover then showed them around the strawberry field. Naruto had to take a long whiff at the area and he sighed in content. The place was heavenly. Fresh cut grass and the smell of strawberries in the air with a feel of natural chakra saturating the area. It honestly made Naruto want to fall back and take a nap. All around there was satyrs and other children who tended to the fields. Grover told them that the demigod children of Demeter took up the task of tending to the field and keeping the strawberry fields in peak condition with the help of the satyrs playing their reeds to help them grow. It also helped that the strawberries helped pay funds towards the camp when they sold some. It may have been a secret camp, but even secrets need money to stay afloat. Maybe they should branch out and sell other goods too, like other kinds of fruits or preserves. Fruit for thought, huh? So G-Man, my favorite satyr, what brought you to look out for us and Percy? Anko asked, draping her arm around the satyr's shoulder as the group walked, wanting to strike up a conversation. Well, satyrs are sent out into the mortal world to find demigods' children and bring them back to the camp once the time is right. Going to Yancy was my shot at redemption, he said, making the group raise an eyebrow. A shot at redemption? Redemption for what? I can't really see you doing something bad that would call for that, Tsunade said, crossing her arms as they walked, getting a nod from the others. Putting his head down as he walked, he said, a few years back, but it's something I'd rather not talk about. If you have to know, let's just say I didn't do my job properly and there was a casualty. I may have brought 2 demigods home, but I failed to bring back the 3rd. After a moment of silence he continued, as I was saying, I went to Yancy and then I found Percy. Sometime later you guys showed up. That's when I called Chiron and he came to Yancy as a Latin teacher. Why did Chiron come to Yancy? Was our appearance so shocking it required him to come? Naruto asked, curious, getting a negative. It wasn't so much of a bad thing, it's just that all of you gave off powerful scents. Actually, Naruto, your scent is even more powerful than Percy's despite that seal, and you guys are just as powerful. Your scents are stronger than the average half-blood, but I put my bet on it being because of you being ninja half-bloods. That's still hard to believe that there's another world out there. You guys have to tell me more about it, he said, getting nods from the others. As they left the strawberry fields they went past the archery range that had a large group of children of varying ages wielding bows and arrows shooting at targets. They seemed good at it since most were hitting dead center almost every time. Right there is the canoeing lake. Every now and again we'll hold canoe races or let campers go for a swim, Grover said, pointing towards the lake with canoes gliding across the water while a lot of boys and girls sat on the beach in swimwear tanning. Over there is the stables where the horses and Pegasi reside, he said, catching everyone's attention. But it wasn't the horses that had Naruto's attention, it was the girl that was walking towards the horses. She had long raven black hair, wearing a denim skirt with an orange tank top on. Hey Foxy, that was the girl who helped get you to the infirmary, Anko said, nudging him in the ribs. Before he could comment, Grover dragged him and the others away, much to his displeasure. When he looked over towards the girl, she was gone, much to his annoyance. They continued around the camp, showing them the amphitheater followed by a large wooden arena. Grover explained that the arena was where they had practiced sword fighting and special games, while the amphitheater was used for sing-alongs and storytelling. If Naruto and the others were honest, it was something they might just enjoy. "Ah, here we are, the piece de resistance," Grover said, spreading his arms out wide to show everyone the camp's cabins in a U-shape, each looking different from the other, with a stone-lined fire pit in the center of the cabins. Sitting next to the pit was the same 8-year-old girl he met before the whole Minotaur deal happened, as she turned towards him with warm chocolate-colored eyes, giving him a warm smile. She mouthed a few words to him that looked like she was saying "I'll see you soon" before getting up as she stood in the fire before vanishing completely. Any thoughts invading Naruto's mind were removed as Grover said, "These are the cabins where you will stay. Each cabin represents the 12 Olympians, and when you're claimed by your parent you will stay in that cabin. But until you're claimed you will stay in cabin 11, the Hermes cabin, as it is where all the unclaimed go to stay," Grover said, getting a nod from the others while they frowned. "He makes it sound as if the gods watch you until you've brought enough good reviews for their name, until they decided you're worthy enough to take you in," Tsunade said through a communication seal, getting a mental nod from the others. "I agree, and the fact that the other gods and goddess don't have a cabin just makes it worse. How many children have died because they didn't have a cabin, let alone the Olympian Council didn't feel they were deserving to stay," Shizune said as the others agreed with her. They didn't bother to ask why so many were empty, since Heir was the goddess of marriage and didn't have affairs with mortals, so her cabin was an honorary deal. From what Grover told them, Zeus's cabin being empty is due to the Big Three law with his two brothers. That all makes sense and all, but why the hell don't Hades and Hestia have a cabin, let alone the other gods and goddess? Anko asked, getting a sigh. "Well, for Lord Hades it's because he's not welcome on Olympus, so he doesn't have a cabin. Hestia on the other hand took an oath to remain a virgin like Artemis and Athena, plus she is one of the few friendly gods. She doesn't see the need to have a cabin since she has no children. It's rather surprising since many forget about Lady Hestia, which is an unforgivable shame, seeing as she's one of the likable gods," he said, getting a frown from the others. "For your question on why the other gods don't get a cabin, I would like to assume it's because of Lord Zeus and many of the other gods on the council, viewing the minor gods as merely helpers, and should feel thankful they're even mentioned in mythology in the first place. It doesn't help many of the minor gods hold resentment towards the Olympians, especially seeing as their children get to be treated like wild game while the Olympians get to stay in camp," he said, shaking his head negatively. "Well, that's stupid, how can they treat family that way?" Naruto said with a scowl, getting a nod from the others. "Well, that's about it on our wonderful field trip around Camp Half-Blood. Any question on what I may or may have not properly gone over during the tour?" Grover asked humorously, getting a snort from the group. "Other than your unhealthy obsession with Artemis as a down-to-earth girl as you called her. Nothing comes to mind, my friend," Naruto said, making Grover blush as he talked for nearly an hour about how wonderful she was and how she was so in tune with nature, which grew stale after the first 10 minutes of his fan-raved monologue. "Alright, hey, how about you guys take a look around on your own? Make some friends and get the lay of the land," Grover said, getting a series of nods before they watched him sprint off. "I still can't get used to the fact that Grover can run that fast and there are no enchiladas involved by any means," Naruto said, getting more nods from the others. "Hey, let go." They heard, followed by a loud smack, making the group turn to see at the edge of the strawberry field was a young girl around the age of 11 and two grown boys wearing blood-red shirts with camo jackets and shorts, with a young girl lying on the ground holding her cheek. Seeing this, Naruto and the others made their way over towards the girl and two boys, while Naruto walked casually with his hands in his pockets. Hinata and Shizune ran past him to the girl, getting the two boys' attention. Before they can speak, Naruto and Tsunade kick the two in the back, focusing chakra into their legs, launching them over the girls and away from the fields. "You know, one would think gentlemen knew better than to lay their hands on a girl, especially when they're younger than you," Anko said, cracking her knuckles, with Tsunade doing the same except louder, making the two shiver at the dark look in their eyes. "Please, like we're afraid of a couple of weakling bitches and some wimp of Demeter," the first said, getting a chuckle from Naruto, who shook his head. "Oh, you two definitely shouldn't have said that, you know, Anko, Tsunade, I let you two field this yourselves," Naruto said as he walked towards the injured girl, while Tsunade and Anko stalked towards their prey. Grabbing the basket, Naruto gathered all the berries off the floor, placing them in the container, before setting it down in front of the girl, who had recovered, thanks to Hinata and Shizune. "You alright?" Naruto asked as the girl winced when she saw how Anko and Tsunade effectively made the two boys their bitches for the moment, while hearing the two let loose a set of high-pitched screams. "Yeah, thank you. How did you heal my cheek so fast?" she asked, getting a chuckle from the two girls. That's a good question that we'll have to explain on later, Shizune answered, getting a nod from the girl, not wanting to pressure the group who saved her when Tsunade and Anko joined them with the two boys to lie on the ground unconscious, spasm on the ground in pain. I don't think I've seen you guys here before. Is this your first year here at camp? She asked, getting a nod from the group. We got here just last night actually, and our friend finished showing us around when we saw you were in a bit of trouble. Does that happen often here? Shizune asked, gesturing to the downed campers, getting a nod. Yes, those are the children of Ares, a bunch of bullies. Well, not all of them are, granted they have the same attitude, but most just leave you alone unless they're like them, otherwise you'd have to earn their respect. I doubt they'll mess with you after what you did to them, she said with a sweat drop as she looked past her saviors to see the two were whimpering. Looking back at the group, she introduced herself. I'm Katie Gardner, daughter of Demeter, and this is my first year too. Actually, I got here a little over 2 months ago, she said, getting a nod as they shook her hand. Nice to meet ya. Name's Anko Mitarashi, daughter of I haven't the slightest, she said with a grin. I'm Shizune Kato, I don't know who I'm born from either, she said with a gentle smile. I'm Tsunade Senju Uzumaki, I'm like my friends here, the blonde said, shaking her hand. I'm Hinata Hyuga, if you haven't guessed I'm in the same boat as them, she said with a bit of humor in her voice. I'm Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, I know my mother, but I don't know who she really is, goddess-wise, Naruto said, scratching the back of his head, getting a confused look. Wait, you know your mom, but you don't know her? She said, getting a so-so motion from him. It's complicated, much like the majority of my life, he said with a bit of humor in his voice, helping her stand up, allowing them to get a better look at her. She had leaf green eyes and mild tanned skin, and like the majority of the campers, she wore an orange shirt, but she had a dark green skirt reaching her knees with a pair of green Converse. How long have you been claimed, since this is your first year here? Shizune asked, curious as to how it works. I was claimed a few days ago. I asked around with the other campers, and apparently it varies from different gods and their children. Demeter claims her children rather quickly, while other gods either act the day they get here or until they're satisfied with what their children did. Ares usually claims his kids if they're strong by his definition. Hephaestus claims his if they're good with tools. Aphrodite claims hers the day after they get here, usually by their look, she explained, making them nod as they already figured as much. But I wouldn't worry, I know you'll be claimed soon, it just takes time, she said with a smile, making the others return it when they heard the girl's name being called as they turned to see a boy halfway down the strawberry fields. I gotta go, thank you for helping me again. I'd like to be your friend since you helped me later. She said, giving them a hug before grabbing the basket and ran. Watching her run off, the group smiled, knowing they made a friend so quickly at the camp before spending the rest of the day walking around before resting at the large tree on the hill. This is the life, maybe we should set up a hammock here. Naruto said, getting a round of agreement from the others. There you all are, they heard, making them look to see Chiron gallop towards them in centaur form, and they had to let out a whistle in amazement. His lower half was white in color with a few scars that were in various places as a sign of his past as a trainer of heroes and his battles. I hope Grover gave you all the tour around camp? He asked, getting a nod from them all as they stood up. Yup, and I gotta say, Chiron, you're looking good as a centaur, Anko said, drawing a chuckle from him. Thank you, Anko, that's appreciated, but that horn you heard means it's time to eat, so let's go to the pavilion. Mr. D and I are going to introduce you all there, and it seems all of you, Percy included, are the talk of camp, he said, getting a nod from the others. Sure we are. We're just that badass, Naruto said with a grin, which the others nodded in agreement, walking with Chiron to the pavilion. End chapter. So this part ends here. If you want to see next part of this series, like the video now and share the story with your friends. Bye bye.